Have you ever noticed that when you get to a doctor's office, they do everything they can to try and put the fear of God into you? They put the gloves on, they put the mask on, so you can't even recognize them in the police lineup for what they've done to you. And then they get out their instruments of torture. Now, if you're anything like me, about 20 years ago, you'll be scared stiff of the doctor's office and injections. I think injections are possibly the worst. Let me try and describe to you what the feeling was. You sort of start feeling a bit woozy in your head. Your stomach feels like it's turning over, your hands are clammy, and then it just gets worse. Madam Toastmaster, if I can call you. Fellow Toastmasters and honoured guests, I'd like to talk to you today about my fears. Two of my fears, what they are, and how to overcome them. I'd like to start with the medical one. So you see, about 20 years ago, I discovered that I had to take some drugs every so often, and I had to be tested every 3 months. And that meant going into the surgery, getting the blood test with the needle and everything. And what I had to do was I had to lie down. I don't know if you have this, but I actually had to lie down, otherwise I'd be out, fainted. Now, the question is, why did that happen to me? My father was a dentist. My grandfather was a doctor. You'd have thought, I'd be used to it already. But I think that's exactly the point. They protected me from, any of the bad stuff. They were nice, they were delicate. And I think that's what the problem was. I didn't expose myself to any of the real stuff. I wasn't allowed to. Now, so what do you do about it? What can you do about it? How do you deal with your fear? So one way is actually just to deal with the symptom. Lie down. That's one way around it. But really, that's not really dealing with it. That's just dealing with the symptom. So I realized about 5 years ago, I started doing some stress handling techniques. And one of them is just breathing. Now you think breathing is, everyone breathes, don't they? They have to, but proper breathing. Now perhaps you can just do it with me, a real deep breath, hold it for 2 seconds, and then let it out. And you can feel your shoulders relaxing, and your whole body becomes a little more relaxed. So that's one thing I did. And then the other thing I did was what I think it's called guided imagery. As they're, messing about with the needle and sticking it in, you don't look, of course, and you try and think of a safe place, a beach, a forest, walking, and it becomes a bit easier. You're less dealing with the symptom, you're a little bit dealing with the stimulus. And as you go on, and I think really the thing is to do it. If you have a fear, face the fear. Challenge yourself. And the more you do it, time after time, as time goes on, as you continue and face that and stand up to it, the fear will go down. The second fear that I'd like to deal with is it's like a social fear. Fear of being in public, fear of being noticed. And I think it's also fear of failure and fear of public embarrassment. Now in school, I was the kind of guy that was described as quietly confident. The teacher wouldn't hear from me for the whole year, but the exams at the end of the year were okay, So he couldn't write bad, he couldn't write good, because he never heard from me, but he could just say, quietly confident. And that's how I was. You wouldn't even know I was there. And later on, it was just, it just carried on, and I was just, little Simon, and not noticed. And eventually I realized something must have changed, because I realized that I could deal with it. And the way I dealt with it was by challenge myself again, by putting myself into certain situations. Now, one thing I did was I went on stage. I've appeared before about the whole of Cisco at Jerusalem, which is about 1,000 people, singing a song, and I don't have a particularly good voice, but I did it for the comedic way, and you know, you face it. But actually, the first time I went on stage, the first time I was able to do something in front of people was when I had a mask in front of myself. You know, so I couldn't actually see anybody. You know, it's the people looking at you that makes you nervous, I think, for me. And just doing that broke those chains of fear, and so I was able to face that challenge again. So really, what I encourage you to do is, if you have a fear, you have to first of all find the fear and face it and challenge it. And I don't normally quote people, but I just saw this, which sounded good to me, was Susan Jeffers, who says, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." And the more you face the fear, the more it'll go away. And if you don't face it, it'll just be something that you're getting further and further away from. You'll feel the fear more every time. Now, I didn't mention what's most important for you. Everybody has a fear. I would say that everybody has some fear, at least one. Now, what's going to be the trigger to do something about it? Now, the one with the medical one, if I wanted to continue every 3 months almost fainting, like that's a practical thing. That's something that I sort of had to deal with so that I wouldn't go through that every single time. So that's one category, is the practical. Now the other one, the public embarrassment, I think I was just miserable. And one way of doing it is just, you know, you pretend a bit at first. You pretend, you stand up there and you face the audience, you face your fear. Even if you come on, if you go into a room like this, you know, you're not going to feel confident, you're not going to look confident to others, people are not going to come to you and speak to you. But if you go, "Whoa, hi, I'm Simon, you're pleased to meet me." Now that's a bit too much. Okay, but something in between. Not confident, feel confident. And for the trigger, perhaps you don't have a trigger at the moment, but perhaps I can be your trigger. Find your fear, face your fear, challenge yourself, and break free. Remove the gloves and face it.